Okay, welcome to this week's module. Last we spoke, we were dealing with uh, file servers and creating storage pools. And now we're going to actually set up disk replication. Before we can start on disk replication, we have to do a couple of things to both our file server and our Windows Server 2019 or Active Directory server. First things first, we need to add another virtual hard drive to our file server. So we'll right click on it, click settings, and add a virtual disk. Click next, next, next. This one, we will just make this 10 gigs. Store it as a single file. Click next. We'll browse, and we're actually going to name this one log disk. And make sure that we have that saved in our CNT211 virtual machines file server virtual disks folder. Click OK, click Finish, click OK, and we will refresh our storage pools so that we get the extra primordial space. Once we have that, we can right-click on it and go to New Storage Pool, and we will create a new storage pool named Logs. Click Next. We will use the 10 gig disk. Click Next and create it. We'll click Close. Then we can go to our logs and create a new virtual disk. Click Next, name it Logs. Next, next, simple, next, fixed, next, maximum size, next, and create. And hit close. And now we'll create the volume. Volume size. We'll just go ahead and say the 8 gigs. Click next. And we're going to change our drive letter to L. Again, this is very important. And we will name the volume logs. Click next and create. So now if we click on our volumes, we should have our X drive, which is our employee storage from last lab, and our L drive, which is our logs from this lab. Now that we've done this, we need to come over to our Windows server and we need to log into it. And we can close out of whatever we have open here. And we're going to right click on this, and we have to create some extra hard drives on this server. In fact, what we have to create is the exact same extra hard drives that we have on our file server. So we're going to create 5 20 gig drives, all new, 20 gigs. Store it as a single file, click next. And this time, instead of being in our file server, we want this to be in our server standard or server GUI. I guess it depends on which one. Server standard. We'll right click on this, create a new folder. Name it virtual disks. Oops. Open the virtual disks folder, and we will name this disk. Sorry. Our disk 1. We'll save it, click finish. Add another one. And like I said, we're doing this 5 times at 20 gigs. our disk 2, our disk 3, our disk 4, and our disk 5. So now we have the 5 disks that we need for that, and we need one 10 gig. 10 gig, that's a single file that we name logs. For our hard disk 6. So now that we have all of those, we hit OK. It will make the changes that it needs. One of these wasn't able to be made or hard swapped. So what that means is we'll have to hit cancel and shut this down. We'll go back into settings, take a look. We have disk 5, 2, 1, 3, 4, and 6. So it looks like they've all added. And we'll power it back up. And we'll log back in. Once we log back in, we want to open up disk management. We can right click on the start menu and click disk management. And we want to initialize all of these disks, bring them all online. And once we have them all online, we can initialize them, disk 0 through 5. When we initialize them, we want to make sure we initialize them as GPT, just like we did on the other computer. So now we can close out of that. And now we're going to go ahead and click on our files and storage service. And we're going to click on storage pools. And we have to create the storage pools for to duplicate these storage pools that we have, which are our employee storage and our logs. So we'll right click on our primordial disk and click new storage pool. We'll click next. We'll name it employee storage. And we will choose all of the 20 gig disks, not the 10 gig. And one of the 20 gigs is a hot spare, if we remember correctly. So we choose one of those and click hot spare. We click next and create. And we'll hit close. Then we can right click on our storage pool and create a new virtual disk. And again, we name it employee storage. Click next. Simple, next. Fixed, next. Believe that this one was set up. Oops. And we'll just go ahead and specify the size as 72, I guess, maximum size. Click next and click create. Hit close. Click next. Click on employee storage. And employee storage is set to X. Again, very important. NTFS, we'll label it employee storage. And hit create. Now we can click on our primordial area and click on new storage pool. Name this one logs. Use our 10 gig drive that's available. Right click on the logs, create a new virtual disk. Name it logs. Simple. Maximum size and create. This one will be drive L. Again, very important. And label it logs. And hit create. So now we should have the same thing here, our employee storage and logs, as we have here, employee storage and logs. Notice that this is 96.4 gigs. This is 97.4 gigs. The reason that there's 97.4 gigs here is because if we open up this drive in our file explorer, there's nothing in it. Whereas if we do it on our file server, we have our common files. So now that these two servers are set up to be basically the same thing, now we can go and start installing Storage Replica. But before we do that, let's take a look at a couple things. So we're going to, from our file server, we're going to right click on our Windows icon and we'll open up PowerShell as an administrator. And we will open up the disk part command. Oops, no space. one word, diskpart. Once we open up diskpart, we can do a list disk command, and it will show us that we have our disk 0, our disk 5, 6, and 8. If we do a list volume, we have our C drive, our X drive, and our L drive. Okay, so now that we know what our disks are and our volumes are on our file server, let's take a look at what they are on our Windows Server 2019. Now, before we go switching over to Server 2019, let's try a little nifty tool here. Let's right-click on our icon again, and we're going to open up PowerShell again as administrator. I'm just opening it up in another window so that you can see that there are, in fact, two separate windows here. And we're going to use the tool WinRS, W-I-N-R-S. And we're going to connect to a remote computer, so -R:, and the remote computer's host name is what we type in there. So I don't remember what my host name is on this server, so I'm just going to come back over here and open the command prompt and do a host name. It's server 2019. Good. Okay, so I can type in server 2019, and I can actually type here CMD. And what that does is that opens up the command prompt for server 2019 right here in my window. So now I can do a host name, and notice that the host name shows server 2019. Whereas if I do a host name over here, oh, sorry, had to exit out of diskpart there. When I type in host name here, I have file server. So these are two different computers that I'm on right now. So let's go back into diskpart. Let's do it on this computer. And I can list disk. And notice that I have disks 6, 7, and 8 here. And if I list volume, I have my X and my L volumes that are on those disks. If I list disk over here, notice that I have 0, 5, 6, and 8 as opposed to 6, 7, and 8. And if I type in list volume, notice that I have volumes 1, 2, 3, and 4, where I have my volume 3, which is my X drive, and my volume 4, which is my L drive. So the only problem that we really have here is this FAT32 system that's over here on this computer versus this one. And let's hope that that doesn't cause any problems, but we're going to find out here in a little bit. Okay, so now that we know that both of these computers have what we need on them as far as volumes, let's go ahead and install Storage Replica. So in order to do that, inside Server Manager, we're going to click on Manage, and we're going to add a role-in feature. We're going to click Next. We're going to click Next again. We're going to use our file server here. And before we can install Storage Replica, we just want to make sure that inside File and Storage Services, the storage services is installed, and it is. We don't need to worry about the iSCSI services. We just want to make sure storage is installed. We also want to make sure that the file server function inside file and iSCSI is installed, which in this case it is not. So we want to check on that. We want to click next. And then we want to scroll down here to storage replica under features and add that feature and click next. And I know it's going to require a restart, so we'll go ahead and click on the restart and say yes, and we will install that. Now, while this is installing on the file server, we might as well come over here to our Windows server because we need to do the same thing over here. Both machines have to have the role of storage replication. So again, we scroll down to our file server and we just make sure that file services is installed, and it is. So we click next and we scroll down here to storage replica. We checkbox that. And again, it will require a restart, so we'll go ahead and say yes to restart it on reboot. So looks like the file server is already rebooting. We can go ahead and log back in now. And looks like the DC is still doing its thing. Looks like it's starting to reboot right now. So on the file server, we can come back and we have the feature installed, so we can hit close. And let's go ahead and log in on the Windows server once it does and make sure that that closes as well. Okay, now let's log into this one. And again, it should show completed. Yep. So we can go ahead and close out of that. And now the storage replication is installed on both computers. Now we have to go back to our file server and we have to test our storage replication is going to work. So before we can test it, let's first come to our File Explorer and let's go to this PC and open up our C drive. We're going to create a new folder on our C drive and we're going to name it results. This folder is where the results of our test is going to be stored, and we need that folder in order for us to be able to validate that these two servers will be storage replica capable. So now we can go to our Windows icon and we can right click on it and go to PowerShell as administrator. And we're going to just go ahead and test storage replication between our file server and our Windows Server 2019. To do this, we have to do the command test -sr topology. This command will do the test for us, but we have to provide a whole lot of information. So we're going to first provide our source computer name, which is file server. Then we need to provide our source volume name, and our source volume name is going to be our X drive. Then we need our source log name, source log volume name, and that is our L drive. Now you guys know why we had to be very careful about what drive letter we assign these, right? Once we have that, we can add our destination for all of these. So destination computer name should be server 2019. Our destination volume name should be X. Our destination log volume name should be L. And now we need to specify how long the test is going to be for. So we do a duration in minutes, and we'll just say 3. And then we have to put our results path, which is going to be our C:\results, which we just made a second ago. So let me expand this a little bit, make it a little easier for you to see that. Of course, this will be in the directions as well, so you guys can read this out, but this is what it should look like. You have your test-SR topology, source computer name, file server, the volume, source volume name, X, our source log volume name, L, our destination computer name, server 2019, our destination volume X, our destination log volume L, and then our duration in minutes is 3, and our results path is C results. You cannot perform this task from the Windows server because that is where we are going to. That is our destination, and you have to do all of these tests on, or all of this command line on the server that you're coming from. So we should be able to hit enter. Uh-oh. Did I type something wrong? DES, which one is it? Server name, DEST. Yep, I spelled it wrong. DES, oh, don't tell me that it won't let me go back and delete that one spot. There you go. Oh, it won't. Oh, that's horrible. Okay, well, I guess we gotta just go all the way back. Okay, do we have everything spelled right now? No. Oh, okay. There we go. Whew. Those fat fingers, you got to make sure you get everything right. So it's going to go ahead and run the validation test for 3 minutes. Once it has completed that, then we can move on to look at the actual test results. Notice that it still says validating the data in log, but then it says test complete. So it didn't quite go for 3 minutes, which is concerning. We'll go ahead and open up our C results. And it does have an error. It looks like the volume on X file server and the volume on X on server 2019 are not the same size. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to go over here to our server 2019 and look at our file and storage service. Click on our storage pools, actually click on our volume. The volume on X is 72 gigabytes, whereas the volume, let's minimize this. The volume over here, this is 68 gigs. So let's come over here to this one, and we're going to delete this volume. And we're going to create a new volume. And what was the size on that? 68. So we want this to be 68 gigs. Oops. And we'll give it drive X. Name it volume, employee storage, and click next and click create. And hit close. Now it's 68 gigs. 68. Looks good. Let's take a look at disks. The disk is 68 gigs. On file storage, and the disk is 72 gigs over here. Let's hope that that's not a problem. Let's go back over to the file server. Let's come back to our command prompt or our PowerShell, and let's run this test again. Again, it says test complete. Again, that's concerning because it should have taken 3 minutes. Let's open up this one. And it looks like we have an error. And it still says that the volume size is not the same. So let's close out of this. And what we're going to do is we're going to come back in here. We're going to remove the volume. So we're going to delete the volume. And we're going to come back into disks and we're going to delete the disk. Actually, sorry, the storage pool. We're going to delete the virtual disk. And we're going to delete the storage pool, which is going to take a little bit of time. Okay, now that that's removed, let's take a quick look at our disk management, because I think I know why these aren't the same size, and we're just going to validate that. And sure enough, if you remember, we created this a simple drive earlier on our disk 0, and our disk 0 was something that was being utilized for part of our storage pool. So now we have this disk 0 that's got all kinds of misconfigured specifications. So instead of trying to fix that through the computer, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come in here to my file server, go to settings, and I'm just going to get rid of disk 0, which should be this one right here. Yep, hard disk 1. So we're just going to click on this hard disk and remove it. And then we'll add a new one. "20 gigs, single file, browse." This should be in our file server, virtual disks. We'll name this one hard drive 1. Save it, finish, and hit OK. And now, when we refresh, we should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 disks, all 20 gigs. So now we can create a new storage pool. Employee storage, click next, use them all, set 1 as a hot spare, click next, and create. Like I said before, these have to be the exact same on both machines, otherwise it's not going to work. So we have to create everything exactly the same. Which becomes very difficult if you're dealing with a situation where you had a file server that had a specific storage that was using RAID arrays and disk management to create everything, and you decide to switch over to storage pools. It can make things very, very difficult. Now let's go back over here to Windows Server. Let's look at the volumes here. Yeah, we changed this to 68, even though the drive or the disk itself was 72. So because of that, we'll just change this to 68. Again, it doesn't really matter because, we're just doing this to test it. Make sure it's drive X. But if this was a fully functioning server, that would be kind of problematic to do it that way. We would have to change the Windows Server, the destination, to be that full 72. So we'd have to get rid of that storage volume again. But because this is all testing, we'll just do it this way. Okay, so now those two should be the same. The only thing that I want to change real quick is I want to come back in here to our local C drive, open up our program files, right-click on common files, copy them, and then come into our employee storage and paste them. Because we want to have some data inside of this X so that when it replicates over to this X that should be empty, which it is, we'll be able to see that that has some files in it. So we should be able to close this, and let's come back here to our command prompt, and let's run this command again. Now, realistically, this should take 3 minutes. Yep. Now, it's good that it's taking longer because that means that everything should be good. So this is going to run for 3 minutes, and when it's done, we'll be able to look at that log file again and or that results file again, and it will tell us, where we're at as far as replication. Okay, now that our now that our test is completed, we can come back in here to our C drive and click on results and look at our last result. And now you can see that 20 tests were run. There were 0 errors. We have a couple warnings, not a big deal. The warnings are based off of our log size and our network latency. Neither one of those are a real big deal. So we should be good to go. So we can close that. Make sure that you submit all of these for the assignment so that everybody, or so that I have a copy of everybody's tests. And now we can go ahead and we can actually set up the storage replication. So in order to do that, we're going to type in the command in our command prompt, new -sr partnership. And we're going to provide a whole bunch of information again. Oops. SR. Okay, so new SR partnership. We're going to do our source computer name, which again is file server. We're going to do our source registration group name. That is going to be RG01. Our source volume name is X. Our source log name, volume name is L. And then we do our destination. Damn it. Destination computer name. Server 2019. Our destination RG name is going to be RG02. Our destination volume name is X, and our destination log volume name is L. And now we can hit enter. Uh-oh. Something went wrong. Source volume name. Oh, yeah, we missed a space. Oops. There we go. Let's extend this a little bit so you guys can see it a little bit better. There we go. enter. Still doesn't like it. Why? Log size is too large for a replication group. So it is just barely too big of a log volume, or sorry, of a log size. So our log volume is too small. That's really interesting that it didn't tell us that. So to do this, the easiest way to do it, let us come back to our file server, and we'll go to settings, and we'll add another hard drive. And we'll make this one 10 gigs again. Make it a single file, click next. We're going to browse, make sure this is in the right location, and we'll call this one log2. And we'll hit OK. And we'll come back here to our logs folder, or sorry, our logs storage pool. And we'll right click over here on our physical drives, and we'll add a physical disk. And we have to refresh, hang on. Now that we refresh and we have our primordial, we should be able to add a physical disk. Click on that disk and hit OK. And we will delete. No, sorry. We'll click on the volume. We'll go to our logs volume, and we'll delete this volume. Then we'll come back to our storage pools, and we will delete the virtual disk. And we'll just create a new virtual disk. Name it logs. Simple. And we'll do max size, which should be 16 gigs. Create. And close. Click next. Change it to L. Change the volume label to logs. And create. And then we'll do the same thing on the Windows server. We'll come here to volumes, delete the log volume, come back to storage pools, delete the log virtual disk. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, good. That didn't do what I wanted to. Delete this virtual disk. Okay, good. We'll come over here to the server. We'll add another hard drive. Make it 10 gigs, single file. Change our storage spot to our server standard, virtual disks. Name this one logs2. Finish. Hit OK. Click refresh so that we have this come back up to primordial. Yep. Now we can right click and add a physical disk. And we can create our virtual disk. Logs. Simple. Maximum. Drive L. Name it logs. Click create. And hit close. And now we should be able to go back to the file server. And I'm not going to test it again. I shouldn't have to. I should just be able to create the new partnership. But it still says that there's a problem. Let's see here. Does it hate it because we named it the same? Or we didn't name it the same, I mean? Let's find out. DESTINATION RG name RG1, fine. Nope, that's not gonna work. Okay. Let's change it to RGA and RGA. Okay, let's clear the screen real quick and let's try and type in the command again. New -SR partnership dash source computer name file server dash source RG name RG01 dash source volume name X, source volume log name is L, our destination server name is 2019, destination RG group is RG02, and destination volume is X, and destination log volume is L. Let's see if that'll work. Still doesn't like this. says that the group exists. So let's get rid of the group. So we're going to do a get minus SR group space and then pipe it to remove dash SR group. Asked if we want to do that for sure. We're going to say yes. And let's try our new partnership command again. You can just press the up arrow to get that. Okay, so it says that the RG group 2 already exists. Okay. So let's get the SR partnership and pipe it to remove SR partnership. And let's get the SR group and pipe it to remove SR group. There is none. Let's go over to Windows Server 2019 and we're going to remove the SR group, doing the get SR group and pipe that to remove SR group. Say yes to that and come back over to the file server. Let's see if this will work again. Oh, jeez. Okay, now we got something that's worth happening here. Now it says it's unable to synchronize replication group because it can't update the state for the replication group, and that's okay. I'm totally happy with that command. It shows that we do have the destination server, that we have synchronization. It's just a matter of not being able to synchronize right now. We should be able to reboot both of these computers now, and everything should be good. So we'll close out of this command, and we will reboot our file server, and we will close out of this over here, and we will reboot our Active Directory server. So run the command. If the command doesn't work, the new group command doesn't work, why can't I find my mouse? There it is. So if the new SR partnership command does not work, if it says that it's unable to create or something like that, what you'll actually have to do is get the SR partnership and pipe it to remove SR partnership, and then get the SR group and pipe it to remove SR group. And you have to run the get SR group command on both the Windows Server 2019 and the file server. Because when you create that new SR partnership, it creates each and every individual piece. Even if one of the pieces fails, it will create the other pieces that were before it. It's not like other commands where if one piece of the command doesn't work, the whole command doesn't work, which is kind of annoying. So we'll log back into the Windows server, and we'll log back into the file server. And on the file server, we'll open up our Windows PowerShell. And we're just going to do a synchronize of the SR group. We're going to do a sync SR group name RG01. Still unable to replicate. That's not good. Let's take a look over here. And let's open up PowerShell in the administration, and let's do a get SR partnership. Okay, so it's showing that it has a partnership with file server and that the destination group is RG02. So let's do a get SR group. And it looks like we have our server 2019 group. And it looks like it's in synchronizing replication mode. So the reason that it's not synchronizing on our file server is likely just because it takes a little while for everything to update. But we do have, based off of these commands, we do have Disk Replica installed and functioning on these servers. It's just not able to synchronize yet because it has to go through its initial settings. So go ahead and make sure that you test these commands, the get SR partnership and get SR group, on your Windows Server 2019 and on your file server. And just make sure that they are synchronous. And everything looks like it's right, so it's just a matter of letting it run. So take screenshots of both of these. Take screenshots of both of these PowerShell lines and make sure that everything's good. In the end, I don't know why this keeps flipping off. In the end, you should be able to open up your File Explorer and look at your disk X. Notice that it says that the device is not ready. That's because it's still synchronizing. Once it's done synchronizing, however, we should be able to access that drive, and it should show all of those files that you would see over here on this X drive. And that's it. That's everything for this lab. So I hope you guys enjoyed Disk Replica. You can tell that it's quite a nuisance. If you don't get the command absolutely correct, you have to try and get it to delete the stuff that it did create versus what it didn't, and get those working. And if you don't have all of your hard drives and all of your storage pools and everything exactly the same on the two machines, Disk Replica doesn't work very well. As always, I always like to say that server roles are really great in a Windows environment, and server features are really crap in a Windows environment. And server replica is a feature. So if you want to replicate your data from one server to another, there's much better products out there than server replica. But nevertheless, this is one to show you how it's supposed to work and everything. So hope you enjoyed the lab. Make sure that you talk about your experience inside of your trouble ticket, and have a great day.